Okay, I think we can start. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar called Biomethane Market from Research and Industry Point of View. So we have a lot to discuss this morning about European biomethane market. And so I'll quickly introduce each speaker of this morning. We are going to start with Mircini Christou from CRES, Greece. The title presentation is the GreenMeUp project. Then we will go on with George Osei-Wuzu from European Biogas Association. And the presentation is European biomethane situation today. Then we will go on with Andrea Maria Rizzo from Record, Italy. Presentation is synergies between anaerobic digestion and pyrolysis. Then, I see maybe there are some troubles.
Everything is fine.
Okay. So Katja Lyons from Biogest Austria, innovative anaerobic digestion solutions. And then last but not least, Ato Hoya from Estonian Biogas Association, real experiences of building and operating the first Baltic green field biomethane plant. And then we will have some 10 minutes for the Q&A time. I kindly ask to the audience to exchange the questions in the Q&A box and just use the chat box for greetings or whatever else. And so I think we can start with Mircini Christou. So Mircini, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I will share my screen now. Do you see it? Is it shown?
Yeah, we have to go for presentation mode.
All right.
So I can see it, but it's okay. Yes, thank you.
Wow. Okay. So good morning. Thank you all for participating in our webinar. There will be the work that we have all carried out in the frame of the GreenMeUp project that aims to enhance the uptake of biomethane in Europe. I'm Mircini Christou. I'm working at CRES, Center for Renewable Energy Sources, leading the biomass department. And I will present you a few words about what we are doing in GreenMeUp. It is a Horizon Europe project that aims to facilitate the biomethane, the uptake of the biomethane in Europe, and how we will do it. It will be done by fostering biomethane production in member states that have less developed market rates. It will be carried out by increasing social acceptance and awareness through science-based evidence, and then by designing market uptake measures for the biomethane development. That is the ultimate objective of our project. Oops. And how it will be done. GreenMeUp has three main pillars that starts the work around it. It's market, policy, and society. And around these three pillars, we are doing an overview of the geographic and country-relevant specificities in Europe to identify how the biomethane market is developed. And we also take into account beyond the European context. So we have identified target countries, those who have less developments, advanced countries that we use as examples, and countries from mission innovation areas. From the target countries are Greece, Spain, Poland, Latvia, Estonia, Czech Republic, and the Danube region. The advanced countries, the exemplary ones, are Italy and Germany, and we have the pleasure to have with us the European Biogas Association that represents the whole of Europe. And from mission innovation countries, there are representatives from Brazil, Canada, China, India, and the USA in our International Advisory Board. So as you see in your left-hand side, There are partners from Germany and Italy, the advanced countries, and the biogas associations from the target countries. You will hear later on from Achto the examples from the biomethane market in their places. And apart from it, we deal also with innovation, technology, and standards issues, because we would like to bring in information on innovations, how technology is proceeding. So starting with the objectives of this project, first of all, we had to identify the framework conditions and the market dynamics in the best performing countries. And in the mission innovation countries as well. So we have carried out a study on the production routes and uses feedstock policy framework delivered by EBA, a review on the technology development for biomethane production, another one deliverable by Andrea Maria Rizzo from Record, a review on the feedstock potentials that is delivered by CRES, and a review on the existing standards for biomethane and hydrogen, and ongoing work for the various CEN committees. That is also delivered by EBA. And finally, we have just finalized the universally applicable indicators for the assessment of the biomethane market at country level. The next speakers will present the work that is carried out in these topics. But I thought that I should give a very short presentation of what is the feedstock potential in Europe, as we have identified according to the 2022 data. If all the resources are to be exploited, then the biomethane that could be produced could be like 40 BCM per year, billion cubic meters per year. That is way ahead of the target of the 30 BCM. Of course, if all this available potential is to be exploited. Half of it would be produced by animal manure and the other half from straw. And a small part can be produced by food waste. Coming down to the animal manure, the majority of it would come from bovine, 34%, and from dairy cows, 25%, and a smaller part from food waste, like 19%. And coming to the countries that are leading the way, first is France, that could produce something like near to 70 terawatt hours, and then follows Germany and Spain. Then follows Germany, and thereafter it's Spain, Poland, and Italy with the highest biomethane energy content. Then the second objective is to evaluate those framework conditions in the target countries following the same methodology. So again, here first was first we had to identify, to set up working teams in each country to be able to provide with reliable data. Then we compile country reports on the production routes and uses, feedstock, and policy frameworks. That is already delivered. You will find it in our website. And then SWOT analysis are ongoing, and we are also starting the organization of business missions. The third objective would be what else to actively engage stakeholders and the society, and have the societal acceptance. So we have, based on the stakeholders that we have identified in the previous work, we set up stakeholder hubs, something like working teams where people could come and provide their insights, but also take the results and use the results in their own daily lives. The stakeholders come from all the stages of the value chains. We have organized co-creation actions in target countries and the World Cafe in every country. And we are now studying the societal perspectives related to the biomethane market. So there are some photos from our meetings and two deliverables produced, one on the setup of those hubs, and the second report on the co-creation actions with in the target country. So you can find the data and the information on what is going on and how things are growing in each country. And the final, not the final, but the main core of this project is to design those country-tailored set of market uptake policy measures, taking into account all the information we have received so far from the previous work. So the outcome here is to produce policy briefings for improved market uptake in each target country, and then as a second step to provide those market uptake measurements. There is already a deliverable on the policy briefings. I selected just one graph to show how the different actors, the different stakeholder groups react to the policies that are requested. The gray line, the gray bar is the decision, represents the decision makers, the policy makers. The orange line is the market players, and the blue line is the society. So from this graph, it appears that the policymakers, the gray bar, mainly want stricter RES target at European level rather than national one. And those targets could be for all renewables or for CO2 emissions, while the market actors prefer targeted policies on biogas, on digestate, on the feedstock management. And also they would prefer at national levels. I mean, stricted RES targets and stricted emission targets at national level. Some very draft recommendations from all this work we have done is that we need to facilitate the use of residues and wastes so that we will, all the plants will ensure a sustainable long-term supply of feedstock. Use the digestate to produce biofertilizers and other branded agricultural products with carbon neutral label, so as to provide a new, more products in the market apart from the energy produced. Support commercialization of other innovative upgrading technologies. Enable biomethane injection both in distribution but also in transportation grid, and facilitate also the off-grid applications that are, especially for the biogas, biomethane plants that are not in proximity to the grid. Foster the penetration of bio-LNG and bio-CNG, while biohydrogen seems to come maybe sooner than expected. And to do all these things, of course, we need to launch financial and regulatory instruments to confront the main economic barriers, which, as we all know, it's the high investment cost, the lack of subsidies, but also the high cost to connect to the grid and also to interconnect small biomethane plants. And finally, that was found in all target countries, establish coordinated policies across agriculture, waste management, energy, and transport sector. That was very much pronounced in all our hub meetings we have. And the final objective is, of course, to disseminate, communicate, and exploit the results. And we are very thankful to ETA for all the work that they have done so far. This webinar is also a part of these actions that we are doing, and we also would like to invite you to join us in our policy workshop that we will carry out in March, 25th of March in Leipzig, Germany. But it will be also available online for those of you who would like to attend, but you cannot be present in Leipzig. Thank you all. Stay tuned with us. You see here our website, our LinkedIn, and we are all available also for emailing. Thank you. I hope I didn't take much of the time.
No worries, Mercy. Thank you very much for your presentation. That was very interesting. And thank you for introducing the policy workshop in Leipzig. Many details are going to be available soon on the official LinkedIn page of the website of the project. But now we can go on with the next presentation from European Biogas Association, George Jose Wusu. He will talk about the European biomethane situation today in Europe, giving an overview of the current biomethane market status. So I think we can go on. George, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, a very good morning to everyone, and thank you, Miss CINEA, even for the introduction to the project. So, even all the details that I'm going to share, even in my presentation, it falls under the work package 1, task 1.1, which is also about identifying the production routes and how the production and market is mainly in the advanced countries. But in this presentation, we are going to look a bit broader, more like within Europe, what the state of the market is. And so let's just jump in. But then heads up, because then there are going to be a lot of statistics and numbers. I'll try to make the narrative very smooth, and then we can all follow through. So what is the state of biogases today? As of last update, even at EBA with our statistical report, we have so starting from the top right, top left corner, 22 BCM of biogases. So when I mention biogases, I'm talking of biogas itself, biomethane, which is the upgraded form, in the EU. So which is more like the total inland natural gas consumption for Belgium, Denmark, and Ireland combined. With also 4.9 BCM biomethane, which was also produced in EU, and then as of the first quarter of 2024, 6.1 BCM of installed capacity also was realized. This cuts across 25 European countries with active biomethane production, which is more or less an 18% increase in the production across year on year. But then there are also new countries that are also coming in every time. But then when you also look at even with what we are producing, you can also see that the distribution, or in terms of end use, the distribution is more or less, yes, indeed, majorly in transport, and then followed by heating in buildings, and then power generations, and then the use in industries. But then, as you can also see below on the slides, there are other co-products that are also being used, and even some economic benefits which comes from even the production so far. So we have with this production figures as we have now, 15% potential to replace even synthetic fertilizers, and also the more or less 29 metric tons of biogenic CO2, which is being produced from biogas and biomethane production, which also has added benefits in terms of utilization. And also, like I mentioned, some economic benefits with more than 250,000 jobs being created even across Europe. What does this also mean? Zooming in a bit, we can already see from 2011 all across to 2023 how the progression has been for biogas and biomethane. So you can already see in the deep green, you see the energy from biomethane, and then you see in the lighter color of green, the energy from biogas. So you can see that totally we have 22 BCM already there, with some 4.9 also coming from even biomethane, and then 17 from biogases. This also represents more or less 17% of EU gas consumptions in 2023, and then 19 BCM of combined production within EU 27. But then again, with our figures, we also try to see beyond just EU 27. So in some cases, you see specifically for EU 27, and then if not, then we are looking at the whole EU more than the 27. But then to date, we have the biggest growth on biomethane production year on year. So like I earlier mentioned, 18% year on year growth in Europe, and which is more or less 21% year on year growth even in EU 27, 4.9 BCM biomethane production within the EU 27. And like I also mentioned, in the first quarter of 2024 already, we saw 6.4 biomethane installed capacity But then the countries leading this run is more or less Italy, France, Denmark, and then the UK. And so they are more or less scaling up in terms of their biomethane production. And you can also see here again within the EU27, the graph on the right, how the progression has been over the years. Because there are a lot of graphs and numbers, we might not just go specifically into every graph, but then you can already have a look. And then we can discuss this also even during the Q&As. So how then are we seeing it even in the infrastructure side? So new plants are coming in every now and then. So we have even at EBA the biomethane map, which we try to update every year. And then as of 2023, there are already 1,510 biomethane plants scattered across Europe, with 1,300 already within the EU27. And you can see the progression also in this graph, the number of plants or newly biomethane plants that are being installed overall, per country. So across Europe. But then the most recent additions, like I mentioned, from now Portugal, and then Lithuania, and then Ukraine. And most of these plants that are being now connected or that are being installed are also connected. 85% of them are connected to the gas grid, mainly to the distribution grid for local distribution, more than to the transport grid, which then goes cross countries and other things. But then in terms of use or end users, the biomethane that is being produced is more or less used almost equally across all sectors, I would say. We still have quite a chunk of unknown, which we keep updating. So the figure for 32% keeps getting smaller, but then majority goes into transport. You have some countries like Italy using more or less everything in transport. You have Norway doing same. You have Estonia, you have Finland, where biomethane is being used mostly in transport. And then you have Germany using it mostly for power and then heating and in buildings. But you can already see with the pie chart in the middle, how the end use of biomethane being produced in Europe currently is. So mostly going to transport, then followed by buildings, and then industry, and then power. And then you can also see at least the top 10 or 15 countries which are utilizing it and where they are using these biomethane that is being produced. Moving forward, we want to look at even the potential of the production. So now we see a bit of the current where we are now, and then where can we get to even in the next couple of years. Already there's been a shift in terms of the new plants that are being produced in terms of their main feedstocks that is being used. So there's been a transition to sustainable feedstocks. So no more like energy crops per se, but more like agricultural residues, organic municipal solid waste, and then industrial waste. So the number of new biomethane plants that are now using feedstocks, or the type of feedstocks that are being used, as you can be seen on the graph here. Already you see that organic municipal solid waste is in there. Agricultural waste for sure has most of the share in across the years, for now, even 2023, 2022, 2021. So if you check, you can already see that it has the biggest part, then followed by organic municipal solid waste, and then you have sewage sludge also in there, and then also gas from landfills and other feedstock sources. So these are more or less where the transition is going towards in the future. And also we can see that with this comes also the growth towards 2030. So currently, with the studies that have been done by even some other bodies, and also with the ones that have been committed by member states, even through their NECPs, we can already see the projected growth. So here on this graph, we see from the purple line, the biomethane volume committed through the NECPs, and then you see the blue line just above it, the ones that is from the 2023 biomethane growth rate, and then also the REPA-EU biomethane target of 35 BCM, so with the lemon green, and then the final one at the top with the biomethane potential, even through some of the studies like the guidehouse studies and everything. So you can already see that there's a close gap between the committed NECPs and the actual growth rate as of 2023. However, there's still a gap to reach even the 35 BCM, and then even subsequently the biomethane potential that we can actually reach by 2030. And so this definitely calls for essential sustained growth, which comes together with coherent planning of biomethane potential, and then even faster permitting procedures across member states, I would say. But furthermore, zooming on onto the NECPs, we can already see that by 2030, we have 15 BCM of biomethane that has been committed by 13 countries that have biomethane only targets, and some 18 countries that have biomethane and or biogas targets. And so they can either have it in both ways, but on this map, you can already see which countries have either a biomethane only target, or they have even a pre-NECP target, or they have a draft target, and what their target is in terms of percentages, whether it's more than 20% being used or the potential being less than 20%. So that is what the state in terms of potential and growth across the European market looks like for now. However, towards 2040, we can also see that there's still a lot of potential that we can do in terms of the production. So within the EU 27 until 2050, 151 BCM by 2050, coming from even the conventional anaerobic digestion, and then even thermal gasification also coming in there. But we can already, supply like 85% of the gaseous fuel demand in Europe, which will now help us to have a sustainable, a secure energy production, even within the European market, which will balance our need, and the challenges when it comes to even waste management, when it comes to emission mitigation, and then even affordability. Because then again, whatever we are producing now is being used in Europe, and we are not just solving waste issues, we are also providing even other core products that can further be used in further production of the biomethane, and even being used in other sectors such as agriculture, like I mentioned, so like digestates, for example. Now, this graph just gives more like a detail of the potential across the countries. So you can already see EU 27 and then EU 27 plus 3. So we are talking of UK, Norway, and Switzerland, which is not part of the EU 27. But you can see that the Germany, France, Spain, Italy are already in there when it comes to their production and how much they want to get even by 2040. And then also you have other countries. So just as we have within the GreenMeUp project, and what we want to do is like countries like Latvia, Slovakia, Lithuania, you have Estonia in there. So the idea is to more or less help also these countries, or to transfer knowledge to some of these countries to build, so that at the end of the day, everybody's potential goes up. At the end of the day, the production across Europe increases for everyone. So how then do we increase the biomethane production? Now, there are two major categories that we'll put it. So in terms of feedstocks, in terms of technologies. So here we are looking at digestate from anaerobic digestion, which can be used to produce additional biomethane, either through hydrothermal gasification or pyrolysis in specific cases. We are also talking about the utilization of marginal and contaminated lands to produce bioenergy crops without having to, to avoid the competition with land use for actual food production or feed production. And then we also looking at seaweed, which we can also invest in, and to bring up even a sustainable feedstock for biomethane production. On the other side, when we come to the technologies, so there's hydrothermal gasification. We can also look at landfill gas, which, even though with time you get all these gases, you can then upgrade them. So you get biogas from the landfill, you can simply upgrade them to biomethane. So that is also another potential there that we can use, or renewable methane that we can also facilitate and put into an energy system integration. This can also help increase the overall yield in terms of biogas production. So you can already see that there is a lot of potential, and there's even still more that we can also do even within Europe in terms of our action to increase our production overall. Now, just to touch a bit on the methanation and then also on biogenic CO2, these are the main points that I'll talk on, and then we'll more or less have the end of this conversation for now. So here we see that there's already an energy system integration where the biogas that we've produced, everything that we have can then be used again, and this will help to utilize it even in terms of having a stronger connection between the electricity and then the gas grid, because then either you're using it for gas systems to be able to use it again, let's say in transport, or you can just use it in the power system. What this solves is that there will be excess renewable electricity, which is stored in the gas grid in the form of methane. And you can also use it furthermore as in terms of hydrogen and then biomethane even production. Here, we try to look at also then what is the state even of the methane market or the e-methane market. So we try to map out the number of plants. Already, we find out that 10 European countries have running, or it's expected to have plants running by 2027, with growth expected in France, Finland, and Germany. But what the interesting thing is that you can already see that there's a fast growing market, or in terms of the number of plants, right from 2015. Currently we're in 2025, and you can see the potential even all the way to 2027. And most of them are coming from countries like Germany, France, and Finland. Like I said, so these new plants are going to come in, and we are going to see the number of plants increasing. This also means that there's going to be additional production, with some 3,000 gigawatts of e-methane by 2027. And in the production, in terms of even the production, it's more steeper than we see even with the number of plants that are increasing, because currently we are around 20, but you can see that by 2024, 2025, just around this time, we should see like around almost 500. And then all the way to 2027, we see like 3,000 gigawatts. So Finland actually now has the biggest biogenic reserves, which is linked to their district heating facilities, and then also waste to energy, as well as the anaerobic digestion. Then the next thing is with biogenic CO2. So the potential that comes from biogenic CO2. Currently, today, we have 29 metric tons, but we can go all the way to 215. And this will mean that we are replacing fossil CO2 and then making more like a sustainable and circular alternative. So with more like biogenic CO2, which will lead to negative emission footprints, and which is more or less not possible when you're doing it from fossil fuels. But here, the interesting thing also is with the end users that comes with the biogenic CO2 that we will be able to produce, where we are either using it directly or using it in a form of conversion. So whether you're using it directly in terms of yield boosting in your greenhouse, or for heat transfer in refrigeration, or when you're using it as in the industrial solvents and other things, or even in the food industry, or it comes under fuels where you're producing synthetic methane or biomethanol, basically, or we're using it in the chemical industry, or even in terms of building materials. So there's a vast potential to use even to capture and use the biogenic CO2 that we produce as part of the biomethane production process. And here we also try to see the plants and how the market is faring. But then this work was started in 2023 in ABA, and the numbers that we had even at the time where we got this response seem to be a bit far lower than actually what is on the ground. And so work is still in progress to actually update these numbers. But we already see that we have like 25 we identify 25 bio CO2 plants in Europe. But then, like I said, once we got an understanding also of further information that is regarding the plants, we can already project that there are about 67 already in Europe, which is producing way more than the 189 kilotons of biogenic CO2. But then we can also see an additional 42 that is expected by 2027. And most of these plants are already using or are going to use agricultural residues once again. So talking of the shift towards new feedstocks or more sustainable feedstocks. And then several countries which are also now developing support schemes to promote the carbon capture and utilization. And so you can already see that there's now also a growing demand for the use of CO2 even across Europe. Now, finally, how to boost the scale up. And this will be my final slide, but I think Missini also touched this with some policy recommendations. And so from an EU perspective, more like a solid and consistent regulatory framework is going to be something that we'll need. And then to encourage also sustainable biomethane production, so which will be in compliance with the RED III, so with access to sustainable financing and then the EU trading system. And also to facilitate more or less the grid connection and then the cross-border trade for biomethane. We need to be able to increase the investment on R&D. We already map the investment outlook even at EBA to see the growth and the production in terms of the infrastructure to support the production. And so you can already see that there's a lot of investment that is being done. From our last update, we had around 27 billion euros of investment going in there. But then this is what we need to be able to increase our production. This is what we need to be able to scale up even the market more. And then the final one is to valorize digestate and biogenic CO2, like I mentioned, as biogas co-products. So they are not just byproduct per se. We can use them again even to produce either biomethane. We can use them again even in our agricultural sector. So I think this will conclude my presentation for this morning. We can discuss further even at the end during the Q&A section. Thank you very much for your attention, and over to you, Giacomo.
Great, thank you very much, George. Thank you for the presentation. We can go on with the other speakers. The next one is Andrea Maria Rizzo from Italy, Record. The title of the presentation is On the Synergies and Opportunities from Integration of AD and Pyrolysis, with a reference of 2 case studies on the organic fraction of municipal solid waste. So, Andrea, when you want, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Giacomo, for the kind introduction. Yeah, my talk will focus a little bit on the opportunities that arises when we had a pyrolysis plant to an anaerobic digestion system, and notably I will focus on the AD systems operating on the organic fraction of municipal solid waste. But first of all, let me acknowledge the precious contribution of my colleagues and co-authors of this talk, Andrea Salimbeni, Caterina Borchi, and Leonardo Nirbi, as far as the grid balancing is say, addressed. So we'll have a look at the generalities on the integration of anaerobic digestion system and pyrolysis plant and the products classification that stems from these 2 systems. We'll have a look at the opportunities between back-end and front-end integrations of the 2 systems. Then we'll move on to 2 case studies. One was 40,000 ton per year AD plant operating on organic fraction of municipal solid waste that we contributed to successfully authorized in Tuscany. It was the first one in Italy where the pyrolysis plant is integrated actually into the anaerobic digestion system, and we'll have a look at the what is needed from a regulatory perspective to make this integration work. And the second one is a design exercise we ran for a small island in southern Italy, a very remote location, and this specific plant has some key feature which is worth going through in the context of this workshop. Finally, we'll talk a little bit of the opportunities for bioenergy capture and carbon capture and sequestration and green balancing services that anaerobic digestion systems of this kind could provide to the grid. So why biochar? First of all, we do love biochar because it's conversely from the labile carbon that we find in biomasses, the process of pyrolysis produces this stable form of carbon, which is a long-lived form called inertinite. And now we have evidences from very long studies we do have evidence from scientific evidence on its stability, and we can, let's say, safely say that with this kind of process, approximately half of the carbon that is stored in the biomass can be transformed into a very long-lived form, and this can thus generate opportunities for carbon credit besides the opportunities that biochar has in the fertilizer space. Let's have a look now at the back-end integration of an anaerobic digestion system as we know it, and pyrolysis. So the digestate is normally thickened, so separated into a liquid phase, which can be further stripped to produce ammonium sulfate. This is standard practice in many plants. And then we have our solid phase, so the solid digestate, which per se, under appropriate conditions, can be component material category 5 under the fertilizer regulation, which is already a product. But sometimes we had green wastes to the stream. We go for composting and we produce another kind of EU fertilizer, which is CMC3. Now, if instead of going to this route, which entails significant investment because you need a lot of space, you need a lot of time, processing time for composting stage can be in the tens of days of duration. Well, again, if we still leveraging the addition of green waste, so lignocellulosic biomasses, for example, we go through drying and pyrolysis, we can combine the stripping section, because we can feed the stripping section also with the condensate stemming from the drying stage, and the solid product from this drying stage can be then processed into slow pyrolysis, originating, of course, some CO2 from the pyrolysis gas combustion and biochar, which is an European let's say a fertilizer under under the delegated regulation 2021-2088, and per se is a CMC14. We have additional, let's say, the benefits in doing already this instead of going for composting are quite evident. Notably, we have a product which, when you have organic fraction of municipal solid waste, it's very difficult to originate revenues from the sale of the digestate. Normally, the value is very low in the single figure range for the product. Conversely, with biochar, under appropriate condition, you can get up to 250 euro per ton out of that product. And besides, biochar has the possibility to open up to the possibility of carbon credits, which, as far as digestate per se is concerned, it's not something that's possible under that specific route. But let's have a look at another kind of back-end integration again with the with pyrolysis system. So if we look at the options we saw before, the one that in which composting was part of the process flow diagram, in which again solid digestate was co-composting along with green waste, we had the possibility to add some more green waste and use a split stream of the solid phase, which undergoes the usual process we saw before, and then passes through slow pyrolysis, originating again biochar and, of course, CO2 from pyrolysis gas combustion. So we have both the products in this specific case, our CMC14 and our CMC3, but we have also the possibility to feed either a part or the whole the biochar produced to the composting plant, and originating a biochar added compost from the digestate, which has some significant improvements when it comes to decrease the nitrogen emission and the atmosphere during the composting stage, enriching in carbon, in solid carbon, stable, contrary to the biocarbon, so very stable form of carbon, the CMC3, and speeding up the composting process. So providing co-benefits to these two systems. On the opposite hand, so front-end integration, we see here the conventional schematic of our anaerobic digestion system. And if we apply the slow pyrolysis process beforehand and feed the biochar to the anaerobic digestion system, we can boost a little bit the methane content in the produced biogas or biomethane, thus improving the overall economics of the system, but also we produce basically, we can produce either biochar enhanced CMC5 or a biochar enhanced CMC3, because the digest state will ultimately contain all the biochar that is being fed to the plant. Let's move on now to the case studies that I was mentioning before, and most notably this first one. This plant has been authorized in Italy, specifically in Tuscan region in 2024. It's the first of its kind in our country. The project addresses the anaerobic digestion of roughly 40,000 tons of organic fraction of municipal solid waste locally collected from separate collection, very high quality product, but nonetheless still affected by this low appealing in the digest state that is being produced, and of course some green waste. So plant is a conventional AD plant for biomethane production that is by the biomethane is being will be fed to the local natural gas distribution network. CO2 will be separated and sold, and of course we will have also biochar production as mentioned and ammonium sulfate. Now a peculiarity of our country is that conversely from the straightforward schematic we saw before, in which after the drying stage, we have a slow pyrolysis, the digest state, and green waste, and we produce the biochar out of it. And we provide the heat for the process from the combustion of the pyrolysis gas, which is standard practice when it comes to biomasses. Being this specific plant that processes waste material, so bio-waste, as input, national regulation in Italy requires that we do a thorough cleaning. We add a thorough cleaning stage of the pyrolysis gases in order to avoid this stage of pyrogas oxidation being required to monitor emissions like an incineration plant. So it's a mandatory condition under our current legislative framework, and this requires thus that basically the pyrolysis gases are being condensed before, and thus separating the condensable part, which is sent to the wastewater treatment plant, whereas the permanent fraction of the pyrolysis gas, thus being composed of CO, hydrogen, some methane, CO2, and other gases, is oxidated into a separate combustion chamber, and this stream provides the heat for the process. It seems a minor addition, it seems just a small modification, but it's quite impacting when it comes to handling this product, which of course needs to be processed as a waste. The second example I would like to bring you to your attention deals with the island of Pantelleria, which is a small island closer to Africa than to mainland Italy. And we have roughly 8,000 inhabitants in this island, but with a very big variation during the summer due to tourist influx. So at present, the current scenario see the island shipping all its bio-wastes to mainland Sicily, So having to deal with something like 7 hours of ship time to go to the main region. And in the context of the Next Generation Europe, is the municipality of Pantelleria secured funds to build its own organic fraction of municipal solid waste treating plant that will be located in the island. So basically, we'll be contracted to produce the preliminary design for the construction of the facility. And as I mentioned before, this specific plant was quite a tricky case study to address, because the variations is like that in summer we have more than twice than the baseline waste collection amount. And nonetheless, the plant is still a small one. So we have roughly, over the year, we have roughly 1,000 ton, 1.2 thousand ton of wastes. As you know, it's difficult already to make economics work below the 30,000 ton of bio-waste collected. This one was particularly challenging. But given the specific condition of the present scenario, it's worth a shot. Now, in this specific case, we decided to use a very modular solution in which the reactor volume can be varied along the year to accommodate for this large variation and to manage fluctuation in the load on the pyrolysis section, which clearly comes with this variable profile of in-feed of bio-waste. We decided to make up this variation at the pyrolysis section with green waste, which is then treated appropriately in increasing amount during the valley of this curve, and in lower amount during the peak season. The process flow diagram that you find here sees that after a pretreatment step in which the usual residues sacs are opened, so we have the packet station. Then we go through the aerobic digestion system. Biogas is produced and cleaned and used in cogeneration. The peculiarity of the system is that the digestate after the thickening phase, so the liquid-solid separation step, undergoes a drying step, pelletization, which is quite usual with this kind of digestate, and then pyrolysis. We have the scrubbing and condensation. Again, as I mentioned before, this is done only because it's of the specific regulatory constraints in Italy. And the syngas here is not burnt to produce the heat necessary for the process, but is being fed to the gas cleaning step along with the biogas and co-fed to the cogeneration system. So CHP out of syngas and biogas. This specific pyrolysis unit is a small scale one, few tens of kilograms per hour, and it's an electric unit. Along with the drying. Drying is a heat recovery drying system, electrically driven, where the liquid is condensated after the evaporation step. So again, we have roughly 1.3 thousand ton per year bio waste, when approximately 100 ton per year of green waste. And we will be producing roughly 3,000 tons per year of biogas and syngas, and something less than 100 ton per year of biochar that will be used as soil amendment locally on the island of Pantelleria. The energy production in the system, we have PV system can combine with the CHP unit. The whole plant will be a net producer of electricity for the local grid, which at present is very polluting because it's not connected with the main grid, the main Italian grid. So it's a standalone system operating on diesel fuel. And so the whole island is powered by some cogenerators running on diesel fuel. So it was a very important objective to make this waste treatment station self-sufficient and capable of producing a net amount of energy, clean energy, that can be delivered to the local grid. Let's move on to the very last step of this short presentation. I'll make mention of the work that my colleague Leonardo Nibi is doing on bioenergy capture, carbon capture and sequestration, and grid balancing, because in general, biogas systems has the possibility to provide a platform for additional carbon capture and sequestration. Specifically, when we look at the typical biomethane plant, where we already have a sizable CO2 production, normally we also have some cogeneration step, even that sometimes it's just to power the utilities of the system and to cover the electricity demand from the plant itself, so the self-consumptions, which are sizable if we have a gas compression stage or cryogenic separation stage. And again, in this cogeneration step, we will have ultimately some CO2 emitted as a result of the electricity generation. Now, in biogas plant, clearly, this possibility can be leveraged to increase the share of CO2 at the output by treating also this exhaust stream coming from the CHP stage, along with the main CO2 stream coming from the separation of the biomethane from the biogas. Another option for which anaerobic digestion system can be leveraged is the provision of grid balancing services, provided, and that this is, let's say, a future-looking, forward-looking possibility. There are several potential area of intervention in which and I'm talking specifically for the AD systems connected to CHP generators, which is a sizable amount of power being produced currently in the EU still. Well, although there are some constraints, the AD systems currently has the unique possibility that by having a certain amount of gas storage on site could potentially provide grid balancing services by pooling together multiple plants. If we look, for example, at the case of Italy, we have a very large number of plants operating up to 1 megawatt electric power, which is roughly 1/10 of what would be needed to provide effective grid balancing services. But this is not an obstacle per se if we think of the possibility, for example, of having this multiple systems, multiple 1 megawatt system, pull it together in a virtual power plant, and thus providing the actual firepower to deliver this kind of service on the market. And well, this brings me to my conclusion. So this short talk. So biochar enables to turn the bio-waste digestate into a stable and durable carbon negative soil conditioner. And of course, it increases the value of the product several times. Roughly 50% of the biogenic carbon that is contained in the processed biomass is being sequestered into the biochar in a stable carbon form. And there are multiple options for pyrolysis plant layout, either with condensation and cogeneration or full oxidation of pyrolysis gases, of course, depending on feedstock and regulatory constraints. And there might be the case that local regulation might require to compromise on plant configurations in order, again, to abide to specific requirements. When added to the back end, along with composting, biochar and as a pyrolysis plant can reduce nitrogen emission in composting stage, increase composting speed and the product quality, thus increasing value and reducing costs. When added to the back end, so instead of composting, it decreases the pyrolysis plant reduces the civil work of the whole plant, because you get rid of the composting stage, increase a lot the value of the product. Again, we're talking of 1 to 5 euro per ton for the digestate, up to 200 euro per ton for the biochar, and open up to carbon sequestration opportunities. When added to the front end, you can improve the CH4 yield, thus increasing the revenue, and produce a biochar enhanced digestate or compost, depending on plant configuration, thus increasing the value of the product itself. The integrated anaerobic digestion plant offers opportunities for bioenergy, carbon capture and sequestration, and of course, rebalancing services could play a role in additional revenue generation in the future scenario. So thank you very much for your attention and for your time.
All right, thank you very much, Andrea. Very interesting perspective on biomethane technologies. And now we can go on with the next speaker, that is Katja Lyons from Biogest, that will talk more about innovation AD solutions, market perspectives, industrial insights, and CO2 management strategies. So Katja Lyons, sorry, when you're ready, you can present. All right, we can see it. So the floor is yours when you want. We cannot hear.
Sorry.
All right.
Better.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Good day from Australia. So I will talk today a little bit about innovative AD solutions, market perspectives, technological advancement for biomethane, and biohydrogen production. And then I will give some insights about feedstock and feedstock potentials, CO2 management strategies, especially for sustainable aviation fuel production, simultaneous renewable diesel production, and also some new hotspot about plasma dissociation for alternative hydrogen production. So, well, Biogest is a company with more than 30 years of technology background. We came from wastewater treatment plants, and we have successfully completed more than 220 projects now in more than 20 countries all over the world. So we're well connected with a lot of European partners for upgrading technology, and also CO2 separation, integrated CO2 separation. So big majority of the projects are waste to energy projects, a lot driven by mainly biomethane to grid gas entry units. We also do CNG projects. We have a big one in India. We do LNG projects for heavy vehicles and ships. And we also focus strongly now on gas to liquid technology via Fischer-Tropsch to produce sustainable aviation fuel and renewable diesel. And simultaneously always have this co-product of carbon dioxide that helps us to bring along and to basically realize this renewable fuels and for the production processing. So from the technologies to produce biomethane and bio-CO2, we have already quite a few mature technologies. So absorption and separation methods. So membrane use or cryogenic techniques. All these kind of technologies have the advantages and disadvantages, but we can mainly say that the biggest drive is going into membrane separation. Of course, it depends also on country regulations of CH4 concentration going to grid, what technology we're using, if we're using PSA or water scrubbing or amine-based technology, but they all have major features and they can achieve up to 99% of CO2 purity. It's just a slide here also to see that the membrane separation has really ramped up, especially from 2020 onwards, even stronger. Cryogenic separation is very interesting, but is still a little bit energy intensive due to the refrigeration needs. But there are also some possibilities to make that more energy efficient. The main advantages of biogenic CO2 separation in the upgrading process is that it has a premium image. So the biogenic CO2 has a strong value chain compared to fossil-based. Some markets up to $1,000 per ton of biogenic CO2. It has, from the technical perspective, high purity, more than 98%, and higher also to meet safety standards for food and beverage industries or for fuel technology. So very low NH3 and H2S concentration, which is typically removed in the upgrading process or even prior to that with low-cost biological desulfurization, which happens in the reactor with injection of air or oxygen. Then we have definitely economic advantage when we can locally produce it and we can co-locate these other add-ons and building blocks of fuel production to the AD plant and the upgrading plant to have all the important commodities as close as possible together. And that means that it's a programmable production and also gives us a secured supply options. Yeah, so basically what we can see is from new opportunities for growth and sustainability, there will be more and more integration with renewables, hybrid energy systems, with photovoltaic and wind. In the hydrogen production, I will dive into some of the plasma dissociation. So we have already seen something from George presented for simplified classification of pathways for CO2 use. I will not repeat that again, as we have captured that already, just for what we can directly use and what we can convert into fuels, chemicals, or building materials. So what is interesting is where we can use biomethane is as an alternative to the most standardized HEFA production of sustainable aviation fuel, which is derived from fatty acid or ethanol to jet technology. We are focusing on gas to liquid via Fischer-Tropsch. So what we need to do is we basically create a syngas. We have catalysts. We protect these catalysts basically with by removing all key contaminants to parts per billion levels. Then we have always a backup also with our own biomethane that we send into CHPs with high efficiency to produce all the necessary parasitic load that is required to keep this whole process green, basically, and to decarbonize the upstream production. So we can simultaneously with the GTL technology, by switching the modes, the catalyst mode, we can create higher middle distillate. So we can create either an equivalent to SPKs, synthetic paraffinic kerosene, which is a Jet A drop-in fuel, or we can produce renewable diesel, which helps us to decarbonize all the farming activities that are necessary when we want to produce this kind of commodity. And most of the time, if you want to produce SAF, you need, in order to make this scale and to bring it to an economical scale, an efficient scale, you need a lot of feedstock, which is sometimes limited with waste feedstock. So I mentioned first waste to energy projects, and I will, at the end of my presentation, more go into the agricultural revolution part in recreating energy crops, but in a sustainable way. So just this slide is is an idea, a picture of how such a biorefinery could look like in the future or in the very near future, where you basically have a biogas plant, an upgrading process. Yeah? You split it in the biomethane and in the CO2. And then normally you could technically just use the biomethane and add oxygen, and you create in the Fischer-Tropsch process with the catalysts and your hydrocrackers, SAF or renewable diesel. But you can make this more efficient if you and basically increase your yield outputs of SAF or renewable diesel if you use the separated CO2 in combination with hydrogen and send that in the same GTL trains to produce more SAF and diesel, almost by 50%. So interesting is that this hydrogen, normally it would be created through electrolyzers. So maybe we can explain what we can do to make this more energy efficient. And there is a company in Austria that is doing green hydrogen plasma dissociation, which is an alternative to electrolyzers. So green hydrogen process basically is like a pyrolysis process in which we rely on renewable energy, which can be biomethane as a feedstock, and also biomethane as a renewable energy as power. It's cheaper and more efficient than conventional electrolyzers. So we can basically decarbonize the biogas and split it into hydrogen and into carbon black, which you see here. So carbon black, it has a big value on the market, and hydrogen goes straight into our GTL technology, for example, in combination with CO2. At the same time, how is this done? It's a plasma arc that breaks the methane without combusting it entirely, but avoiding CO2 emissions. And thermal energy is created, which has another use for other applications. For example, it could be turned into cooling for the absorption process, if you need for cooling of CO2 that we have initially separated from our upgrading process from the biogas. Maybe what is interesting that Air Liquide has forecasted a global demand of 117 million metric tons by 2030 of hydrogen, and its current electrolysis methods are really unsustainable for meeting this demand. So this could be interesting and scalable solution. Why? Because to produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen with a caloric value of 33.3 kilowatt hours, electrolyzers require about 53 kilowatt hours of electricity. And this is 1 kilogram of hydrogen is now converted into electricity by the means of a fuel cell, for example, and 25 kilowatt hours of energy obtained. So this is an energy loss of more than 53%. And also you need a lot of water consumption of 9 liters up to 21 liters of water. So this SFI plasma methane pyrolysis process requires only 10 kilowatt hours of electrical energy for the same amount of hydrogen produced. So this is very, very interesting. So the key takeaway from the SAF production is that we can do GTL via Fischer-Tropsch process. Yeah, we can produce a direct drop-in fuel, which is currently with the European mandate starting from 25 on 2% as a blend-in fuel to fossil jet fuel, and then by 2050 it will be up to 70%. So this is a very aggressive target, and in order to meet these targets, we need to be producing SAF better yesterday than tomorrow, and it's hard to do it with only the waste streams that are given. So what we can say here is that we have to look into the feedstocks. It has been mentioned in a few presentations today that yes, feedstocks, food waste, industrial organic waste, and energy crops will be interesting. Still untapped and unutilized is high lignocellulosic biomass, straw, husk, pulp. So the challenges lay there in this complex cell structures that require special pre-treatment, yeah, and also to invest in tailored equipment for these co-digestion techniques. So this is an example from the farming perspective. This is Pelletec, is also an Austrian company. Scheider, they have like a mobile extruder, I would say, a mobile pelletizer. It uses only less than a third of the energy compared to other systems. It has a high output per hour for both mobile and stationary operations. And yeah, it can basically pay off within 2 years by reducing labor, time, energy, transport, storage, and space cost. What it does is it basically goes through the field, it harvests all the straw. If it's on a mobile operation mode, it sucks in all the straw, it extrudes it. So there's a mechanical and a thermal treatment process happening. And the interesting thing is that when you process about 8 tons per hour of straw, depending on material, what comes out are pellets that can be readily used to put in as a feedstock in AD plants without any further treatment. And it has been really denaturated through this thermal process and broken up this lignocellulosic structure, which is extremely interesting when you think straw normally has retention times over 90 days in an AD plant, while these pellets, this basically processed straw, just have a retention time of 40 days. And this makes it really interesting if you mix it with other feedstocks that, for example, require, if you have chicken manure, if you have high nitrogen based feedstock that needs a buffering with carbon, you can add this on without compromising on the retention time and actually configuring your CN ratio in a proper way and in an efficient way according to your reactor design. And this is where Biogest has its strongest horse, which I would say is the power ring, a ring-in-ring reactor type that has the ability to treat very high dry matter content. So straw technology integrated is interesting here. We can other ways to increase the efficiency is the nutrient availability. So pH and the CN ratio, as I mentioned already, all in combination with the mixing. So every feedstock that gets mixed into this power ring, excuse me, basically gets introduced and inoculated with the old feedstock and with the bacteria, with the microbiome of the digestate and of the feedstocks inside within 5 minutes. So there's a very high degradation of organic matter, and therefore we can reduce organic loading rates. And then we have also advanced pre-treatment techniques, yeah, for feedstock utilization, not only, as I mentioned, with thermal, or with this pelletizer, with mechanical, which we would normally use disintegrators or hammer mills, but also enzymatic pre-treatment, which is very interesting, especially when we work with a very conventional feedstock like silage. So this co-digestion is something that will always play a key role, not only on the farming side where we start to plant and put seeds in the ground with diversity, but also diversity with feedstocks in the reactor time, and to be flexible with all sorts of feedstock that might change throughout the years with different contracts of people and farmers, where you can't only rely on some typical conventional feedstocks. So we heard already that this integration of sequential crops, energy crops, this will play a major role. Agricultural residues, to make them ready to be used. And yeah, basically from 2030 to 2050 onwards, 50% of this feedstock supply will be derived from sustainable cropping systems like And that's why it's so important to really work on the agronomy side and work on how we can really integrate this and create circular economy farming and make that keystone systems for food and fuel supply that can happen simultaneously. So it is really important that we can keep soil health, nutrient integrity of plant root soil systems happy. And also by doing this, the big advantage is in looking at intercropping. So intercropping, why intercropping? Because we are looking at different plants that can actually benefit each other, like synergetic plants, not only from the plant system, but basically from the root systems. You have a sweet sorghum plant, for example, with fibrous roots, and then you have a deep tap tiller, like a nitrogen fixating legume, like a cowpea, which really goes down to another level, not competing in nutrients, not competing in water, but enhancing the quality and the yield of the other plant, basically by bringing up all these nutrients from a different level of the soil and bringing it up to the levels, making it ready available for the companion or relay crop, partner crop. So there are many examples where we can see global wide that these synergies really make sense, that they can increase, that they're not compromising each other, but they're actually enhancing yield by putting them together. And not only in this way, but most important is that we cover the ground 365 days a year. So this biogas done right concept has already shown that this is important, that we need to cover the ground so that we don't have any carbon dioxide emissions going up after a tilling event, NOx emissions going up after a tilling event when seeds are not straight put into the ground. So what is important is, in order to really create this soil health, is we need to understand the carbon sequestration potential of plants and the timing and the rhythm of the land and the farming practice. And these are all the most crucial parts that we need to work on globally, and to create incentives to basically enhance the productivity of marginal land, of rehabilitation of land. And it's still not enough focus on that, because if you look at the agricultural systems that are still going on in most parts of the world, we're very far away from that. And it is something that can be shown, that we actually can create very high nutrient dense food crops simultaneously with energy crops. And sometimes you have 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 12 different species growing within one farmland throughout the year. And all this contributes to soil health, to root health, and to resilience of plants. So my conclusions here today are waste to energy projects will definitely be explored to their full potential to contribute to green fuel production and carbon sequestration. But these European SAF mandates and global-wide SAF mandates, they will rely on countries with abundant land, ensuring scalability and sustainability in meeting these SAF targets, especially by maximizing the use of the marginal land and abandoned land for energy crop cultivation is crucial to meeting these targets. And to create carbon sinks by integrating this energy crop cultivation with the food crops, and to increase land productivity with carbon capture. Yes, so thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Katia, for your presentation. It was very interesting. So I think we can go with our last speaker. We now go into detail with a very practical approach, since we have Ato Hoya from the Estonian Biogas Association, and he will speak about the real experiences of building and operating the first Baltic greenfield agricultural biomethane plant. We have the case of Estonia. So please, the floor is yours, Ato, whenever you want.
Thank you. I hope my slides are visible.
Yes, we can see them.
Yes, welcome. Thank you for inviting to give the presentation. Really, some practical insights how to improve the sector development. So just Estonia to show you, we are considering ourselves as Nordic country, which means that outside temperature in the midsummer could be +30 and in wintertime -30. And this is important in terms of designing, building and operating the plant to really to consider it that we don't have the plus temperatures all around the year, which makes a bit building and operation more complicated or challenging. Very short overview of history showing that why Estonia now has 8 biomethane plants and 12 biogas plants. We really started sector building already almost 25 years ago when the first sewage plants were built in Estonia just for biogas and just to purify the sewage, municipal sewage sludge. Also, the first consulting companies were established, and the Estonian Biogas Association was established in 2009, being one of the establishing associations of European Biogas Association. And we also had a successful knowledge transfer from EU Intelligent Energy Europe project Gas Highway, where the best European knowledge that time were kind of transferred to Estonia. And I would say we really saw in practice how the knowledge transfer succeeded to change the mindset of audience, of public, and also the decision makers and ministry people who said in the final conference 2012 that biomethane is very good domestic renewable transport fuel. And once we have the obligation to get renewable fuels to the transport, biomethane is very, very fits to that objective. And that's the reason in the next years, the biomethane development targets were included in the long-term energy plans that time, and also the structural funds in energy sector were used or started to use for the biogas sector in development. And nowadays it's we'll see shortly how it goes now. And the Estonian Biogas Association is then partner of GreenMeUp project nowadays. So that's the current situation. We have 8 biomethane plants and 12 biogas plants. And out of these 8, the red marked CINEA plant operated by biomethane and the Estonian cell plant operated by Rohegas. They were the first in 2018 who really started. And this industrial Rohegas plant, they just upgraded the biogas. They had already biogas plant 5 years operational. So the CINEA plant was really the first greenfield biomethane plant in Estonia. So that's how the sector started. These 2 plants, 2018, created something less than 50 gigawatt hours of biomethane per year, which now increased by 24. It has been about 280 already. So having constant increase in production. So the ownership of this first plant, the investor of Silicate Group, the Mangeli, which is the agricultural running the 1,800 dairy cows farm, which feedstock is 80–90% of the plant. And the investment was 6.2 million, which is divided by loan investment grant, which was pilot that time, and own equity. So that's the kind of typical, quite small. We have the 2 digesters, number 2, we have the solid feeder, number 6. We have the upgrading unit, number 7. Let's say that it's also the virtual pipeline, the the consumers are 40 kilometers and 100 kilometers away. So we compress it to the 250 bar at the plant and transport with containers to the either grid injection distribution system or to directly to the filling station. And we have also the filling station just beside the fence. Close number 16 is the local filling stations. And the last year, the consumption or the selling of the biomethane was divided almost equally at the 1/3 at the local filling station, 1/3 in the city from 100 kilometers distance, and 1/3 were injected to the natural gas grid. And in this place, I want to also just one of the lessons. You see this gray area in front of the number 6, which is the solid feedstock feeder, and all this rainwater, what comes down here, it is considered by environmental authorities as polluted industrial water. And it was very close that they start to demand to purify this rainwater. And that was one of the lessons I come, that actually this solid feeder is good to build under the roof, so that it doesn't touch with the rainwater if something drops around it. But that time it's open, and now we just have to clean it almost after, let's say it very roughly, after every feeding, not to let some solid feedstock what is dropped down during the loading process, which is drained off by rainwater. So that's one of the lessons. So that's the drone photo of the plant. You see this number 1, 2 fermenters. The liquid storages of digest are managed by farm. And that's the workshop office. The blue one containers are the upgrading, and that's the containers loading post with 3 posts for 6 containers and solid feedstock. And you see the farm for dairy cows. So I just come just to keep the time limits to the lessons. Before even the farm started to build the farm, we were involved to the process because we are the same owners, so 90% the plant. So we said that once they plan the farm building, the kind of disinfective substances, for example, cleaning this milk processing part, they can't go directly to the slurry and to biogas plant, and therefore it's separated that these disinfective substances go directly to the liquid digest storage, and they're not come to the biogas plants because they are, of course, killing bacteria, and they have inhibiting impact to the biogas production. So the second lesson in the starting also from planning and building was to keep the cold and warm maintenance room separately, which we didn't, meaning that just for this -30 climate, we keep all the pumps inside the pumping room, and we did the same electrical cabinet is in the same pumping room. So the pumps create the heat, and anyway, the electrical cabinet creates the heat, which is not need to be cooling. So they were like double, we had to cool it down, the whole pumping room, and sometime we heated it with pumps. So that was the just very minor thing, but in practical terms, quite important, just not to make your life harder by yourself. Yeah, and also the lesson was even we had international and already 10-20 years experienced know-how for the biogas design plant. They still made mistake of dimensioning carbon filter was twice smaller, and later on they admitted it, and as part of the project without an additional cost, they added another 2 cubic meters of carbon active filter amount, because the first was too small. And that was actually very simple kind of mistake, that 1 ton of active carbon is 2 cubic meters, and they just took 2 tons, but actually it needs to be not 2 cubic meters but 4 cubic meters. So they added 2 cubic meters later. Also, what we added later and learned, we installed a hammer mill for solid feedstock to make the mechanically pieces smaller, and we increased the yield of biomethane almost up to 20% from the same amount of feedstock. So that was really, investment was quite moderate compared that we got 20% more yield with that investment. So that's nowadays for the next plants what we are currently developing. We definitely say that if there is solid feedstock, at least to some extent thousands of tons, then the investment to design at the beginning to the solid feedstock line to have at least hammer mill to make the solid feedstock pieces smaller. And also what we demanded from the beginning, that compressors also create the heat, and in kind of conventional solution is to put coolers to the roof of the containers and just to let the heat to the sky. But as I said, in Estonia, -30 in maximum, in winters, -20 is average, -15, whatever year it is. So we collect this heat, like excess heat from the compressor rooms, and we heated the whole workshop and the office with that just for free. We're just keeping it heat like in other rooms, and we don't need any additional heating to keep the workshop small and office small. So that's one of the lessons. And that's also to keep the heat kind of inside the digesters. In the right hand, it's just with wood chips we heat through one pump the whole digester. We don't have the pipes on the walls, so it's outside is the heat exchanger, and with 70 degrees wood chip hot water we heat the feedstock inside the digesters. The left hand side, much more that we take the heat before we pump the digest to the storages outside. We take up to 10, maximum 20 degrees of heat out of that, and heating it before the cold digest we injected to the fermenter. So just try to keep the foam in the fermenter and not to heat all from the beginning. So the feedstock we use is close to 20,000 tons of slurry, 6.6% dry matter, up to 5,000 solid manure, and it depends, 1,000 to 5,000 tons of grassy biomass, residues, whatever we get. So the hourly production, originally we planned it 150 cubics per hour, but as you see now the current is close to 200, which is the maximum of upgrading. We have the membrane upgrading, and that's almost on the maximum running now. So by the year, the production is 1.5 million normal cubic meters of biomethane. You see the pictures of solid feedstock and liquid is pumped. And also there was one characteristic that palm has the sand bedding. So actually they reuse the sand, and before pumping the slurry out, they washed out the sand, reused it, and we get the slurry almost not without the sand, even some sand get it. So lessons on the feedstock, of course, you have to ensure guarantee the stability, you have it always, the quality. We had the problems with rocks, plastics, rubbers, tires inside the biggest stone were like 3 human head size. So it's really destroys the screws, conveyors and stuff. So it's very important that feedstock is qualitative without any physical substances. And then this origin of the feedstock, of course, it's not a problem if you only digest the agricultural manure and solid and manure. If you start to use, for example, vegetables or potatoes even, which is not used for the shops, but still potatoes, then the environmental authorities consider this, let's say, 10 tons of potatoes as waste. And once this 10 tons out of how many 100,000 tons per year we digest, even we inject once this 10 tons of vegetables, which is considered by authorities, by legal acts as waste, automatically now in Estonia, the environmental authorities say that the digest is 100% waste, which demands the waste permit from the biogas plant. And even worse, if we want to give the digest back to the farmer, what we want, because that's the 90%, 100% of their feedstock, They want to use the nutrients in the fields. The environmental authorities say, no, it's not the digest, it's not the manure, it's waste. And also the farmer has to now apply the waste permit to put the fermented slurry in 40 days to the fields. And everybody knows that biogas production doesn't add anything. We digest what we put in. And that's kind of the really nonsense and the unlogical way that manure without fermenting is good fertilizer, organic fertilizer, natural fertilizer, non-fertile fertilizer to the fields. And once we digest it in the fermenter, adding 10 tons of potatoes, it automatically makes all the digest waste. And farmer can't put it on the fields, not put in the nutrients to the fields, because it demands the waste permit. And it's practice. Few, not our company, because it's more mainly that the slurry and not put any. We are not allowed to put now these 10 tons of potatoes, but others who use the food industry or any whatever kind of waste code substances, all the digest is considered as waste, and it's the huge practical problem. Let's say in the worst black scenario, the biogas plants should end the production, which is everybody loses. Waste is not treated. Biogas is not, biomethane is not produced, and no win. Yeah, and that's also actually stopping the whole circular economy concept if it goes. And of course, the environmental authorities say, okay, if you put anything else with waste code feedstock, you have to pasteurize it or hygienize it, but doesn't make sense to pasteurize all 100,000 tons, because we want to add just maybe a few tons of some vegetables or some feedstock or some food processing clean feedstocks. And the sooner or to say that's the European regulation. We can't do nothing. We follow the rules. We can't break the rules. So my message is that this digest regulation, to consider it as fertilizer, really should be find solution at the European level. We also made a suggestion that this kind of, let's say, 10 tons of potatoes, they're not considered as waste, but put them other code like the secondary raw material or biomass for the biogas plant, whatever, which is originally, it's not waste. How it becomes a few small additional, keep the critical spare parts storage, what also the technology providers suggest. We were not putting it all, but later on we started it additionally. If you break something, you can change it quickly and not wait for 1 or 2 weeks. That's this picture of putting the solid feedstock facility under the roof. The upper is our practice, where it's open air, and all the plot in front of that considered as industrial polluted waste if the rainwater goes there. In the lower is the newest Estonian bioforce company, the solid feedstock. You see that they built around kind of roof and house, and inside is the similar feedstock facility. So that's kind of the practical, from a practical point of view. And also I've seen in other countries the maximizing optimization, that this feedstock can be even the closed room, automatically opening the door. Different feedstock suppliers can come and put it in, and you save the time for downloading from truck and then loading with front loader to the feeder. In that case, from truck it directly downloaded to the feeder. Yeah. Yeah, this is also that was the hammer mill we installed just to see it also the liquid to get the additional feedstock in. That's what we installed later, was the gas chromatograph, because we built also the filling station just beside. So the gas companies demanded that you have to, according to the regulations, and we agreed it. And we also, that's the reason we spared putting the gas chromatograph to other consumption points, to the injection point or to the other filling station, because the gas is the same. It's under 250 bar. The quality can't change anymore after the compressing it. So but we installed it later than originally was planned. And if the gas quality is non-quality, it goes to feedback loop. But as the membrane is so quality, and we keep the biogas, raw biogas quality in level. Sorry. So I have never used this feedback quality. And that's also some practical thing that is switching or outside or mixer levels in winter times, the ice comes down and the very icy. So actually they are covered with ice that you can't switch them. So it's good to keep in practice in mind that in our good climate, the ice can make damage and you have to protect your switchers and mixer regulators from that. And that's just the filling station just beside and then first 100% compressed biomethane filling station in Baltics started operation 2018. And we had also some innovations. We installed solar panel electrical 250 kilowatt nominal, which is our maximum. So in the midday of summer, 100% electricity is produced by sun. We also tested the fertilizer, hybridization packed it to the 5 liters canister and 25 liters solid to 25 liters plastic bag. It was tested, now it's on hold, and maybe the new whole plant will be built. So we also installed this first mobile autonomous compressed biomethane filling station to this city. We also had tested this solid oxide fuel cell invented in Estonia by Elcogen and put together by Finnish company Convion, and it's working still 2020, which high 25% heating and 60% electrical efficiency with nominal capacity 60 kilowatts. And in the future, we think about wind generation just for hydrogen and maybe together with soft CO2 to increase or to inject the hydrogen directly to the digester. As what in the next plant also to put H2S removal. Now we just have the classical specs. We have several times designed and made calculations of feasibility to use the CO2 off gas from upgrading membrane to purify it and sell a CO2 product. Or as today we heard, maybe just to think further and do something else out of the CO2, but the ideas have been there. And of course, the last thing you can also think about clean hydrogen from biomethane, but of course, the efficiency is quite small. Thank you very much. I think that's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Arthur. Thank you very much for these details regarding a real experience of building a biomethane plant. You are the last speaker. I saw that the audience and the speakers already had some time to exchange question and answers in the Q&A box. We just have one remaining from Bartolomei, so it was for George. So the question is, does the 40 BCM biomethane potential assumes maintaining the current production of biogas, or given the constraints in feedstock supply, this assumes that all biogas production will switch to biomethane?
Okay.
George.
Yeah. So I think with the potential, this comes also from the Guidehouse study that EBA even had with Guidehouse, and the current growth rate, even for biomethane at this point, is around 20%. And even to reach like the 35 BCM, we need like around 34+% consistent growth rate. But it doesn't necessarily mean that all biogas is going to be converted to biomethane. It also takes into consideration feedstock availability. It's taking into consideration the technologies that can also help in scale up the production. It's also more or less looking at the continuous use of biogas, because then there's also going to be the use of biogas, for example, in CHPs in the local energy system, but more on like the optimization of feedstock use and then the scaling up of the production. So these are the main factors that comes together to get the potential that we are talking about.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, George. So there are no more questions remaining. So I wanted to thank all of our speakers, all of the audience to be like so many, and showing so much interest. So I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Giacomo Mezzetti from ETA Florence, and I'm in charge of the communication and dissemination and exploitation of this project. And it was a pleasure to host all of you here today. just a few things again. So all the presentations will be available on the website very soon this week. And also, this is a reminder for our next policy workshop in Leipzig. Please, you can register as soon as we announce officially the event on our LinkedIn page and on our website. So I wish you all a very nice week, and thank you very much again for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
Thank
do
you.
join us.
Yes, yes, it's
Please
gonna
feel
be.
free to contact. There are contact details at the end of our presentations. I'm talking to all participants. Feel free to contact us and we will reply. And we would like to have you with us in this really long journey.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you very much again. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.